Yeah, g'day everyone and welcome back to the TryPod Live with Winny and Clarkey for our NRL Grand Final special, our last NRL preview for the year. It's going to be a huge show. I'm pumped up for it. Winny, how are you going?
Fantastic, mate. Cannot wait for this Grand Final. One of the most exciting Grand Finals we've had the chance to look forward to and preview in recent memory. Off the back of last week, I'll let people know we did win our best bet that was 2 weeks in the making. Storm had to exit at the stage of prelims, which they did quite comfortably. We won the mixed matchup as well comfortably. Warriors 3 tries, Melbourne Storm just the 1 try. We lost the same gamer, but we are 5 from 5 NRL Finals best bets. I can tell people I have a best bet for the Grand Final, so I'm putting that perfect record on the line tonight. But I will let you know straight away, Clarkey, I'm going to break protocol and I actually am going to share my best bet at the end of the show because I feel like all the different angles that we're going to touch on are going to lead into that. But I can tell people we've got a bunch of bonus clips, bonus tips, information, cameos. We've got a giveaway that we might roll into very shortly as well. And we're going to look at the game from nearly every angle. And we appreciate you guys being here. And we love to hear how you see it as well.
Absolutely. I like it. Breaking protocol in a little bit of a cheeky fashion, but also for by far our most important show of the year. Let's roll into that giveaway information right now. So to everyone that is live with us right now, to enter our giveaway, which is an NRL jersey courtesy of Top Sport, all you need to do right now is comment who you're going for or who you think will win in the grand final. Let us know. Drop that comment. It can be as in-depth as you like or as simple as I'm going for the Panthers. Whatever it might be, drop that comment right now and you will be in with the chance.
Sorry, mate. I think we got our wires crossed. So that was like what people might have seen on your post today. So people might have known we're giving away a jersey. So someone that watches this will win a jersey, but we've got to be able to pick the correct prediction. So I have made it specific. So what I want in the comments, comments Facebook, Clarkey's page, TryPod page, and just if you are on YouTube, be careful. Don't comment this in the chat. Comment this on the video. We want first try scorer. I want Clive Churchill medalist, and I want the exact margin of the winner, and that's going to be the tiebreaker. So the comment is on screen, right? So everyone comments that. Closest wins. If more than one get it exact, earliest bird wins the jersey. So I'll come back. I'll review all the comments everywhere this video went out, and I'll find someone. So have a crack. Shoot them in as soon as you're comfortable. First try, Clive Churchill, exact margin. You'll get yourself a jersey delivered, your choice, in time for season 2024.
Yep, and what I said was just a trick to get everyone commenting. We are live and we do see your comments pop up as they go. Winnie, a little bit more of a tough marker than me. I was throwing it out there nice and easy, but what do we expect from the man with a 9-year fully tracked winning record? To all of our new people that might be listening to this show right now, coming over from my Instagram live right before, of course, you guys would know me as Dane from Clarkey's Rugby League column, but every week, Wednesday, 6:30 p.m., I join Jacob from the TryPod podcast, which is a fully free NRL tipping and betting podcast with a 9-year fully tracked winning record. Every single bet that Winnie hands you guys is tracked, and that way you know that you're getting the real deal and not just someone handing out willy-nilly tips here or charging an exorbitant service without the results. This man delivers the best results out of any free tipping service there is in the NRL, and that's why it's a privilege to be here with him every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Sorry, I just went very off script there. Let's jump back into the show. Before we get into our game breakdown, we're going to hear an exclusive word from Tristan Merlehan, who is the CEO of Top Sport.
G'day everyone, Tristan Merlehan from Top Sport here. We're here and we're into the final game of the season, or the NRL season anyway, and what a grand final we've got ahead of us. The Panthers Broncos have been the two best teams all year. Penrith obviously been the best team for a number of years now, and they're looking to go the three-peat. They're the $1.56 favourite, and the Broncos are $2.40, or $1.58, $2.40 should I say. Line of 3.5. Penrith's been very firm favourites all year. We actually don't have a bad position on either side. Neither of them are big winners, but neither of them are losers either, which is pretty rare going into a grand final like this where you don't have a massive swing on the futures book. I'm certain that's going to be a little bit different at a few of the other places. We obviously know there was a 100-to-1 special earlier in the year or before the season started on the NRL, where I'm certain a lot of people took the Panthers, which to me has probably impacted the way this finals market shapes up. I think if that market wasn't there, we probably would have seen the Panthers a little bit shorter in this market, but I think there's a bit of downward pressure on the Broncos. I think a lot of people are probably going to look at taking that plus the start on the Bronx and try to give themselves a position going into the final. So as a result, the market's 3.5. We've actually laid the minus 3.5. Our biggest bet so far is 15,000 on the minus. So there has been a little bit of support at that. We've gone into the $1.80, $2 an ounce. So going to be a fascinating betting contest. We've got a stack of markets, all of our same game multi-markets. Check it out, because if you want to throw your try scorers in with a winner, I'm very, very confident our same game multi pricing is as competitive as you'll find anywhere else. We did actually have a market up for the Panthers to win 3 straight. I'm just bringing that up now, which was done earlier in the piece. Panthers 3-peat, and that was at $10 when someone asked for that in 2021. So it didn't take too much action, but we took a couple of bets on it, so they'll be certainly riding the result. They're looking pretty good, $10 now, where it's $1.50 going into the game. We've obviously got the AFL Grand Final as well. That one's a really, really tight betting affair. Collingwood $1.74, the Lions $2.10. Can we get 2 Brisbane teams that win both comps? It's a very exciting weekend coming up. Make sure you check out all the markets. Good luck if you're having a bet, and of course, gamble responsibly.
$15,000 on Panthers minus 3.5. That's a big bet there. Are you much of an AFL fan? Quickly before we get into the NRL, do you have a quick tip there in the AFL Grand Final?
I like to watch the AFL. I'd probably watch more if I wasn't always watching the league. I certainly like to catch the finals. I am cheering on the Lions. And I've got a bonus AFL tip. I thought, you don't want to hear my angle on it. I might have had a couple of winning AFL legs in my multis, but let's get the man who's been contributing to our group all year long. I'll save that till the very end for those who care about it. And just to add on to what Tristan said there, the 10-1 that TopSport offered for a Panthers 3-peat, that was after they won the GF in 2021. So it was like, will they go back-to-back after having won and after having shown everyone how good they were? Because if you were going to back a team for a 3-peat before they'd won one comp, you expect closer to 100-1 odds. And funny, Tristan mentioned that his competitor, but another show sponsored better, was offering 100-1. And I told people, take Penrith last year, which, is not too prophetic, sure, but that was probably the best one to be on. It still is now. You're in a strong position if you're sitting on that ticket in terms of what you do, coming back the other way with a handicap or locking in a profit with Brisbane, or just riding it all the way. Tristan's on his way down to Sydney. He's pumped for the Titans, of course, in the NRLW. Mate, you tipped them to me on Sunday. You wanted to back them head-to-head, and Look, we need more of your NRLW tips, mate. I was shocked that they beat the Roosters. I didn't think anyone could beat the Roosters in the finals, but here we have it. So Tristan's gone down for that. He's a childhood Panthers fan as well. Obviously, he's adopted your Titans since he's moved to the Gold Coast, but it'll be a great day for Tristan. And on that note, people will be asking, how about NRLW Grand Final, State Championship tips? So I just will say straight away, I don't have anything concrete right now. Of course, I'm a huge fan. I just don't watch every minute of those competitions. If anything comes to me through more deliberation, of course, I'm going to share it. Facebook group, Discord, but I invite others to share in that same place, as well as in the comments of this show, if you have any of your own, or yourself, Clarkey.
Well, the only time I've ever felt strongly about the state championship was when the Panthers reserve grade were in it last year. I just felt they were going to be a level above no matter who they versed there. And it's real awkward that the Bunnies played last weekend, whereas the Tigers played the weekend before. So there's that awkward gap in between. Are they partying the whole week and naturally celebrating the premiership, or are they still training? I don't know, so I'm going to leave it alone. And as far as the NRLW final, I can't offer any real analysis there without it being biased, so I won't. You guys know exactly who I would tip and who I will be tipping in the NRLW Grand Final. So let's look straight ahead to the NRL Grand Final. We're at Accor Stadium, Sunday, 7:30 p.m. It's the Panthers v. the Broncos, and the line is set at -3.5 in the Panthers' favour. No changes to either side. There was some reports earlier this week that Herbie Farnworth had a hamstring injury. Kevin Walters has clarified it was a quad / thigh injury, and he will be fine to play. In this one, Winnie, we've got the Panthers in their 4th consecutive grand final against the new kids on the block, really, which does sum up the Broncos' mantra and their persona this year, I feel. So I want to know, who are you tipping this one, and how do you break it down?
I'm still going to reserve my tip. It will probably become clear as we go through. But on that note of 4 consecutive grand finals, the first thing that comes to my mind is that this grand final reminds me a lot of 2020. If you think about it, Penrith came into the 2020 season off a 10th place finish the previous year. Not unlike Brisbane, who came in this year off 9th. And it's worth saying, in 2020, we tipped them to win the minor prem, $750. Had people telling us it was a donation. They ended up winning quite comfortably. So you got that parallel that the team, the young team, up and coming, they kind of came out of nowhere. Like, some people didn't have Brisbane in the 8 this year. like they didn't have Brisbane in the Penrith in the 8 for 2020. Well, they stormed through and got to the final, and it was against the Melbourne Storm, who in 2020 were the benchmark of the competition. And while Melbourne had not played in 4 straight grand finals, it was close. Melbourne was the champs in 2017, in the GF 2018, in a prelim 2019, and then there again in 2020. So obviously Penrith are now in the Melbourne role 4 years later. That was seen as a super evenly matched grand final like this one is. Penrith came in as a slight underdog. Now it's the plucky young Broncos who come in as the slight underdog. And the point I want to make is that, maybe the lights were a little bit too bright, because if people don't recall, it was 22-0 to Melbourne at halftime. If it wasn't over then, it was when Pappy scored soon after the break, 26-0. Although Penrith did mount a bit of a comeback, it was essentially lost. But now Penrith's the team with all that experience. There's another parallel too. When Penrith made the GF in 2020, I think it was 17 years since they'd won the comp. And now Brisbane's here, 17 years since they won the comp, trying to end that drought. So that's the first edge I wanted to talk about, was experience. I want to throw some trivia at you, Clarkey, and at our followers as well. Does anyone know, I'm sure some people do, but could you say off the top of your head, how many players who are lining up for Penrith on Sunday are playing in their 4th straight grand final?
Oh, I guess 9 off the top of my head. The core of them's been there. Yeah?
9.
That was a
Edwards,
guess. I was honestly a guess.
Toto, Luai, Cleary, Fish, Martin, Yo, and Leota. If you want to say how many are playing for 3 in a row, so a couple didn't play in the losing but were in the 2 winners, you add Sorensen and Lenu to that, and you're up to 11. So, incredible experience. Now, Brisbane, it's not like they're lacking experience. I would count about 10 players who play either Origin or Tier 1 Test football, and big game experience counts for something. But it's funny, Brisbane was so dominant in the finals, almost feel like you get better served if you could have had a tight contest, because that's where you really find out what you're made of. So they're coming into such a pressure cooker. You got Ivan, who's been here several times. On top of that, Sydney grand final. So I feel like it's familiar environment for the Panthers, while Brisbane's got to add in the element of travel and just getting the week and preparation right. I know Kevy's done it all as a player, 6-time premiership winner. I can't remember off the top of my head how many as captain. Obviously an amazing leader. He's won Origin Series as a coach, but highest level he's ever gotten to as a first grade coach. Ivan knows what it's all about. So that's my first major edge. What I wanted to talk about, Clarkey, was experience. How about yourself? Where do you see any big advantages being held?
When I talk keys to victory for both sides, I kind of land in cliche areas, which on one hand could be me playing it safe, but it also just could be how good these sides are. And they've given us such a great snapshot this year with their form. For the Panthers, I think their key to victory is just play their natural game. Because when they do, the 2023 season has shown us they score more points than any other side, and they defend better than every other side. So if they can get into their groove and play their natural game, then the onus falls to the Broncos to get them out of that and challenge them. For the Broncos, I think it's not to shy away from attacking opportunities. They have to chance their arm at stages. And I think that's exciting for Broncos fans, because Reece Walsh definitely shown in that preliminary final he is prepared to do that, and he is their main attacking weapon. They've shown this year as well they can defend their errors. They are the second best defensive side. Only the Panthers are better. And in attack, as I said, Reece Walsh is just absolutely electric. So I hate to fall in too big of cliches there, Winnie, but those are the answers I would give you.
Well, I'll give you my biggest key to victory. And as I see the comments flying in, it's hard for us to address too many of them. We'll try to where we can. But obviously, if you're watching, you're getting that added information of all the great comments and angles from our followers. So my number one key to victory would be the ability to absorb pressure. When these sides are at their best and on a roll, they're nearly unstoppable. You've got forward packs that are winning the majority of collisions. Both sides have ball playing in their forwards. They're ball playing 13s, expert 7s, and explosive backs on the outside that will take advantage and certainly will capitalize if there's an opening. And when the games have really mattered, you look at the important high-stakes games, like nobody's been able to withstand that heat of a Penrith or a Brisbane with repeat sets, with momentum, in good ball territory. And that's the key, because we know these two sides, what they can do in attack. The great thing about this grand final matchup is they're both also top 2 defenses, and they are comfortable being uncomfortable. and they can withstand that pressure. We've seen Penrith has been elite defensively for 4 straight years. Brisbane has really ascended in that department this season. So I think the key is, you're going to be camped on your try line under pressure. Can you hold the opponent out when the heat is on and when it's going against you?
And the other thing is, these sides, I just want to double check this, but I believe they're 1-1 this year. It would have been round 1. The Broncos went to Penrith and got the win. And round 12, the Panthers came back.
13-12?
It was.
And then
15-12.
15-4.
And then, yes, you're
Penrith
right,
got 'em back round 12.
15-4 in Indigenous round at Suncorp Stadium. So we have 2 sides here that are 1-1. I know you won't give out your official tip yet. I will. I've been thinking about this game for a very long time, man. And I think a lot of footy fans have, because naturally these have been the best 2 sides this year. And for the most part, throughout the season, when I've stopped and reflected, I've always landed on Panthers as my pick. We know what they're like in finals. We can trust they've got big game experience, and they're just so dominant. Early this week, I started to give the Broncos more thought, particularly after what I saw them do in that preliminary final. Not so much the score. Panthers beat the Warriors by a big margin as well. It was the way they played. And I had just had this strange, almost deja vu feeling that I can't shake ever since. So I think Broncos. I'm going to tip Broncos. It's a young side that has exceeded expectation all year. As you said, they don't quite have the experience on the grand final stage, but they are also riddled with experienced players like Reynolds, as well as young and up-and-coming State of Origin stars that won the Origin this year. Not to mention, you also add Payne Haas into that pack of their Origin forwards there. They've also shown defensive resolve this year, where they've defended their areas. As I said, only the Panthers concede less points. Most importantly for the Broncos side, from what I've seen, they keep coming in attack. They might make an error. They certainly don't complete as high as the Panthers do, but they keep coming in attack and they keep trying. And I think to beat this Panthers lineup, you really got to test them. I truly believe, and I know everyone will say that defense wins premierships, and I completely agree 99 times out of 100. To beat this Panthers side, I think the key is actually attack. It's that 1 out of 100 time, because they're so dominant. If you just get into an arm wrestle with the Panthers and think, let's kick for corners and let's complete at a high rate, you don't threaten their attack enough. And when you kick into corners, it's To'o and Taruva running the ball back. It doesn't help you. You can't get into that sort of arm wrestle. You got to throw the traditional coaching handbook out the window. I'm going to go Broncos on the fact they had 11 line breaks last week and 23 offloads. That gave me belief that through their attack in this grand final, there is reason to tip either side, and I'm going Broncos. I'm not sitting here acting like I've got the greatest tip of all time, Winnie, and that they're going to absolutely come through and win. But I certainly think, based on those stats, you've got to give them some thought. And the betting market seems to indicate that as well at 3.5.
Absolutely. And that's why this is such a great grand final, because you can easily make the case for Brisbane. You couldn't really say why Parramatta would win it, let's say, a year ago. And when I looked at all the areas and we're going to do team by team breakdowns next. And I'm kind of looking at different units, different aspects. And it's like, which is better? It's like, well, it's a strength for both. It's strength versus strength. So then you're splitting hairs sometimes, which strength is stronger. So someone said, take your Queensland glasses off, but Clarkey's got no bias for Brisbane, really. If anything, they're the big brother that beats up on the Titans. So look, yeah, you're taking the slight underdog there, but I think there'll be plenty with you in the comments. I've seen comments about the wall that Penrith builds in front of Cleary's kicks, and someone calling Penrith cheats, but I dare say those were some staunch Broncos fans there. Others saying they're like defense, like unders. We'll comment there from Ryan. Offense wins when both teams have good defense, and that might lead into one of the biggest attacking weapons in the competition is Reece Walsh. And I know you want to talk about outside backs next in our team breakdowns. Is that right?
Yes, we'll get to the team breakdowns in one moment, but don't forget, for this grand final, we will be cooking up a same-game multi thanks to Better. That'll be out on both of our platforms on Friday. Our Better sign-up link is in the show description here live, and if you're listening as a podcast. And, of course, if you do sign up, make sure you send the TryPod page a message on Facebook and let us know. But before you sign up to any book you think, what are you prepared to lose today? Set a deposit limit for free and confidential support. Call the number or visit the website on screen. And those details are also in the podcast description. Let's move to team breakdowns. One more comment, actually. Ryan has had some really great analysis throughout this year, as has Colt. Another comment I can see on the screen right now. Those are names I remember all the way back to round one. So massive shout out to those lads, and thank you for being here throughout the whole year. I think let's break it down this way. Now, we could break it down multiple ways. Let's start with the back three. Then we'll go center and back rowers combined, halves and spines broadly, middle forwards and bench. Let's kick it off with the back three. Who has the advantage here? Is it the Panthers with Dylan Edwards, Sunia Taruva, and Brian To'o? Or is it the Broncos with Reece Walsh, Jesse Arthurs, and Selwyn Cobbo? Who you got?
I will talk specifically about the fullbacks because I found that was actually one of my keys to the game. And it's probably fair to say the wingers are pretty even. Maybe you give a little edge to Penrith, I think, because To'o's the superior winger of all four. But I feel like Cobbo's that good as well. And then Taruva, Arthurs, maybe a wash. Have both done a job all year. But let's talk about the fullbacks because Walsh has set the competition alight. I'm in awe of his talent. And, hey, I predicted this. At the start of the year, I said he would be the best signing of 2023. Now, that sounds so obvious now. But you didn't hear other people talking about what a game changer this was going to be, bringing Reece Walsh into this Brisbane side. And I feel like it's because not that many people watched him closely on a struggling Warriors side last year, but he is an absolute superstar. We've all seen it now. And the speed that he operates at is as fast, if not faster, than anyone else in the competition. So, of course, Reece Lightning can break open a game. As you said, Brisbane, the key to winning might actually be their attack. And there's no greater weapon on that side or greater threat than Reece. But I will have to say, I don't want to be a downer, but speed players thrive in games that are on a fast track, that are more open, and when the forwards are generating momentum to play off. That's been most of Brisbane's games this year, but it's not necessarily going to be that type of environment on Sunday. Penrith's going to give you less opportunities than most sides, less time, less space. We saw that in round 12. Walsh was really kept in check. As we said, Penrith won 15-4. Walsh, maybe just barely 100 meters, but about half of them, kick returns really didn't tear him apart like he has with most sides, like he has against most sides. And Walsh didn't play round one. It's worth remembering as well. So I'm not trying to take away from Walsh, but I feel like people envision how the game's going to go and they think of the star players. They picture the highlight plays. But sometimes games like this, you don't get a lot of highlight plays. Now, it is worth mentioning the offload game as well. And Brisbane had a season high 23 offloads in the prelim. If you get a lot of offloads away, that's how you can create half chances. You get tired defenders. Walsh has the quickness to be floating around behind the ruck, and then he can be onto the ball in the blink of an eye. Someone like a Carrigan pops one out the back. Of course, there's risk reward with that. With offload, you've got to calculate in. It's risk reward in the style that Walsh plays. You saw that all in the first half against New Zealand. On the other side of the field, you have the 2022 Clive Churchill medalist. I give myself another rap because I did tip him $8 last year on this very show 12 months ago. So that was Dylan Edwards. Such a different player to Walsh, but he does so many little things that help his team win, including organising the defence, all those 1% plays. He's maybe the least flashy fullback in the comp. Walsh might be the most. So what a matchup it is just in terms of the contrast. But who impacts the game more and who will I give the edge to? I'm going to go Penrith's favour with that back three. And again, I think it is splitting hairs. But in this style of game, I think it actually is slight advantage to Penrith.
And I could break this down one of two ways. I think if you go player for player, I give the advantage to Broncos. I would take Reece Walsh individually over Edwards. I would take Cobbo individually over Taruva. But I would take To'o over Jesse Arthurs, of course. But I do agree with you. The style of contest that I expect here, I actually do give Penrith the advantage just because I feel their back three will be able to generate better start to sets and therefore better momentum and field position. And I think that will be very, very important in this contest. Let's move on to the edges and look there. For the Broncos, they have a centre pairing of Herbie Farnworth and Katoni Staggs. Their back rowers are Kurt Capel, a former Panther, and Jordan Ricky. When we look across the fence of Penrith, we've got centres of Isaac Tungo, Stephen Crichton, and their back rowers are Scotty Sorensen and Liam Martin. Do you feel strongly to either side there for an advantage?
I think outside backs is a strength of both sides. Like they're all such dynamic players. It's probably worth mentioning the Farnworth injury. That would be huge because he's been so good this year. Wasn't he like top 5 in post-contact meters, which is basically unheard of from a centre position. On the other side of the field is a guy equally hard to handle in Stags, but then Crichton might have been the best center of all, and I would have Martin as probably the best second rower in the competition. So, but by virtue of the second rowers, I might say that Penrith has a slight edge in the edges as well. How do you see it?
Yeah, I'd agree with that as well, which is sounding unlikely because I did tip the Broncos. But I do think centre-wise, I prefer the Broncos on this big stage. I think they will outperform the Panthers boys there, especially someone like guys like Tungo, who did show a little bit of hesitation returning from that pec injury last week. I will say where the Broncos do have an advantage as far as back row is concerned. Liam Martin's in a class of his own. Scott Sorensen is comparable to Ricky and Capewell. But of course, Capewell has played for the Panthers before, which does give him an advantage of that up and in defense and potentially shutting down some plays there out wide. Let's talk halves first, and then we'll look at spines holistically. For the halves, it's Jerome Luai and Nathan Cleary up against Ezra Mam and Adam Reynolds. This is a tough one to break down because the synergy that both halves have is very similar, where both halfbacks are game managers and both 5'8s are eyes up attacking footy players. Do you give an advantage to either side there?
I totally agree. I'm going to actually give you a more in-depth look at the halves. I think it ties into my Clive Churchill medal pick. But in terms of the spine overall, again, I'm going to side with Penrith. I think, the Luai injury, let's mention that one. It's still slightly unknown because he didn't really have to push himself. He played a good hour last year, but he did everything right. And he did, carry the footy and obviously held his own. Defensively, Penrith curiously switched Crichton to the right side, I think, so that they didn't have two players who are a bit underdone in Luai and Tungo lining up side by side, which I believe will be the case again in this one, right? But if we assume Luai's, at least 85% plus, I think he is an edge over, let's say, Ezra Mam. Again, Ezra Mam, I think, is a player that benefits similarly to Walsh in games where the going is good. He really shows, but whether he can win in a pressure cooker type game and be the difference, it's tougher for those type of live wire players like Ezra Mam. And then I also think the combination, you said they both got great synergy, but I mean, we're talking about a decade of continuity and repetitions between Cleary and Luai, obviously going all the way back to juniors. You can't replicate that. So again, that's why I have to give Penrith an edge in that department.
I'm going to say something crazy here. If this was a regular season game, absolutely, you've got to give the edge to Panthers. I'm going to go the other way to the Broncos, purely because I just feel like Jerome Luai doesn't have that peak match fitness, and he might be slightly off having only played 60 minutes since returning from a shoulder injury, which you noted he didn't have to test out properly, and he will be playing through significant pain there. Whereas Ezra Mam is young, daring, and when we talk about the Broncos needing to come up with attacking plays to win, he is a central part of that. So I'm going to give him the edge there. Then when we look to Cleary and Adam Reynolds, as I touched on before, field position is so important. And I think Adam Reynolds actually has a better general kicking game than Nathan Cleary. I know that's maybe a bit of a bold take. I think Cleary has more forced dropouts this year. But in terms of just general kick play and trying to shift momentum, Adam Reynolds has had one of the best boots in the NRL since 2014 when he won the premiership himself. So in a normal context, in a normal season, I do agree. I don't think you can argue that the Panthers have the advantage. But for what I'm looking for specifically in this game in terms of my tip, I'm going to make a bold call, and I'm going to give that edge to the Broncos right there. And if people disagree, which I suspect they will, please feel free to give it to me. It's a bold call right there. Let's look quickly at hookers because we didn't touch on them too much. Mitch Kenny v. Billy Walters, rather. Interesting one, right? Because no one thought Mitch Kenny was that guy, respectfully. Everyone thought that they were going to have to bring in other players from reserve grade. The young hooker, Sonny Luke, so they all thought he would need to come in. No one really saw Mitch Kenny as an out-and-out 80-minute grand finals hooker. But then you look across the fence, respectfully, people didn't even see Billy Walters as an NRL-level hooker. Even like 6 months ago, he scores 2 tries in a preliminary final. With that wave of confidence, do you give him the edge over someone more established like Mitch Kenny?
I had him like in kind of similar level players, so I don't think either is really the difference. And I think the one that has the better game ultimately is on the back of how the middle forwards go.
Yeah, I can agree with that completely. Mitch Kenny has great service, and I think Billy Walters is probably more of a dangerous attacking hooker, which, as you said, it leans perfectly to which middle forwards generate the momentum. Let's look that way now. In the way of the Panthers, we have players that you said have been in 4 grand finals in a row now. Moses Leota, James Fisher-Harris, and Isaiah Yeo, up against Origin reps Thomas Flegler, Payne Haas, and Patrick Carrigan. Dare I say, it legitimately does not get better than this. You couldn't come up with 3 middle forwards from any team to have a better battle than this one. Who are you going to give the advantage to, though?
I think it's slight advantage Brisbane. I mean, and this was actually my third key to victory, the forward battle, as obvious as it is, because Brisbane's defense, and they've been awesome defensively this year, but part of the reason for that is on the back of the forwards, because the forwards get them good territory. So then that leads to a good kick by Adam Reynolds. You talked about his kicking game. So often the opponent is bringing it back from their own try line or inside their own 10 or 20. Right, then they're winning the contact, they're winning the yardage, so they're limiting opportunities. And when the likes of Flegler, Haas, Carrigan are smashing you and putting you on your back, you're buying time for your outside defenders to be organised and to ultimately make decisions and be ready for what's thrown at them. So I do feel like Brisbane's ability to limit quick play the balls, limit tackle breaks, limit line bending runs is their key, is a major key to victory. And then, it goes beyond that. Obviously, outside that, I think defensively, getting back to the centers like Staggs and Farnworth are so explosive with the ball, but they've become really physical defenders this year too. Likewise, Penrith's got, Crichton, maybe the best defensive center in the comp, and he can pick the ball off. So I kind of actually think the forward battle, and that's led by the triumvirates in the middle forwards, then ties into how you defend. So I have that as a key area of the matchup. And specifically for the breakdowns, I think it's dead even because you can't take much away from Penrith's middle three. But I feel that is an area that you can say Brisbane have the superior talent.
I'm going to go a little bit bold again. I'm going to disagree and say this is the Broncos' biggest advantage across the park when we look team to team. Now, Moses Leota, what does he do so well in big games and grand finals? He goes after the other forward pack and tries to intimidate. If there's one person you're not going to intimidate, it's Thomas Flegler. He's shown throughout this year in Origin. He's a bit of a madman, and he's going to go straight back at Leota. I don't really have too much of a favourable pick there. When we look at JFH versus Payne Haas, what I was getting up while you were speaking was the stats that the Broncos posted. Haas has 60 more tackle breaks than him. He averages roughly 60 more meters per game. He's got over 600 more post-contact meters this year. He's got over 30 tackles, 30 more offloads, pardon me, and his tackle efficiency rating is 98.4% compared to Fisher-Harris's 92%. I thought statistically they were a lot closer match than that. When you break it down there and what you want from a middle forward, Payne Haas wins that by a landslide. And I'm not sure if those stats are skewed in some way, but that's looking at the whole season. So it's a pretty good snapshot. When we go locks, Isaiah Yeo and Patrick Carrigan, I actually give it to Patrick Carrigan. All year I've had Isaiah Yeo as my top lock. I had him as my lock of the week last week, and everyone always disagrees with me and says Carrigan had him. And I do disagree with a lot of those people. I think Isaiah Yeo, play for play, is still the better lock. But Carrigan has shown this year in Origin, he goes to a new level in big games, as he's shown us when he won the Wally Lewis medal. Whereas Isaiah Yeo has always been solid in grand finals, but it is worth noting in terms of big games in Origin, he was relegated to the bench this year. So I'm going to give Broncos my biggest advantage right there. Let's look at the benches. We've got for the Panthers, Jack Cogger is their utility. They've got 2 middle forwards in Lindsay Smith and Spencer Laniu, and Luke Garner as their edge back rower. For the Broncos, their utility is Tyson Smoothie. Their middle forwards are Keenan Policia and Kobe Hetherington, and Brendan Piakura is their edge back rower. I think you've got to give the Panthers the advantage here. Do you agree with that?
Slightly. I have it pretty even. And that's why I think although the 3 starting middles is advantage Brisbane, I feel like the rest of the forward pack, when you can bring the likes of Leniu and Smith off the bench and just continue that level of physicality, means that the forward battle is so even. But I understand, you had to feel that Brisbane's going to win that matchup to tip them. And I can't talk anyone out of that for sure. But obviously, Penrith just keeps coming at you and is relentless. But on the other side of things, like Brisbane's pretty deep too. There's quality players that can't even make the bench of either of these sides. And, Hetherington is also going to come on and mix it up with those boys. And I think Palacia is a future star. I look at, the Eels signing Hopgood. I think you see it time and time again where players, the best signings are sometimes the guys who are just stuck behind a superstar. And I kind of see that could be the case with Palacia. I think it could be a starting lock for a lot of teams in the competition. You just can't get a start ahead of Carrigan. So both sides have a lot to offer from the bench as well, but I thought it was pretty even. What about you?
Yeah, I love Cannon Policy. I actually used to be in the Gold Coast Academy with him for rugby league back in the junior days. So really, really cool guy. And I'm really glad he's with our Titans next year. In terms of breaking this one down, we go to utilities. Look, I think Tyson Smoothie is going to come off the bench and offer more defensively than a Jack Cogger, who I feel is only there for depth in case Jerome Luai's shoulder doesn't quite come through. Outside of that, I think there's a world where we might not even see Cogger get on the field in this one. I look at Spencer Laniu, and I think he's one of the best bench forwards in the competition. And I did check then. Lindsay Smith averages the exact same amount of meters as in this year at 95. So you have to give Lindsay Smith a ton of credit there. Luke Garner only played 10 or so minutes last week. Again, unless of an injury, I probably don't see the need to take Sorensen or Liam Martin off. They are 80-minute players, so potentially there for depth also. Looking across back to the Broncos, Brendan Piakura, I think he has more attacking upside than anyone the Broncos have on the bench there. And I do rate Kobe Hetherington and Keenan Palacia pretty highly. I think they're really, really handy players who are going to come off the bench and work hard for you. Why I have to give it to the Panthers, though, Winnie, it's just Spencer Laniu. He just comes off the bench and runs like a freight train, can shift the momentum, bend that line, get the quick play the balls. In a close contest, it's not a stretch of words to say that could be the difference. Someone bending that line and generating some momentum in the middle. So it sounds like when we look at the teams, we're pretty similar in a lot of areas, but we're no closer to really saying who has the more dominant lineup. Both of us are kind of split on both elements of either side. So it's an amazing game of football. This is the best possible grand final we could have got. Let's look forward to Clive Churchill medal.
Before we do, sorry, mate, I'm going to throw to one of our cameos. We're going to have a familiar face, especially familiar to those who watched the pod last year. The Padonis is going to chime in with how he sees the matchup. Let's see if he can split them for you guys. He does have a best bet. And while the Padonis clip is playing, let us know in the comments just what is your best bet. I can see Luke in the chat. I know Luke's got a couple of bets he shared in the group. He went under 40.5, but let us know. And if you want to share a line as well of why that bet is the best for you, let us know your best bet for the grand final, odds and bookie, and why, as we listen to how the Padonis sees it.
Hey guys, Padonis here. Looking forward to a fantastic grand final this week with Brisbane up against the Panthers. And it's the best matchup, the one we waited for all year. And when I've looked at and handicapped this game, I do have one bet to share. And that is the Broncos +4 at $1.84 on TopSport. I like to get that extra hook there in a game where the markets are so tight. You need all the extra value you can get in big games like this. And I just feel that maybe the market hasn't entirely valued the Broncos correctly here. And someone asked me before the final series started, what would I rate this line if both of the teams met in the grand final? And at the time I said -4.5 in the Panthers' favour. Well, since the final series has begun, I think you'd say that Penrith have performed to a level that everyone's accustomed to, whereas it's actually been the Broncos that have elevated their game to a standard similar to Penrith, and they've shown they have class and strike all across the field, and they've shown resilience as well. And looking back to the defensive performance in that 26-0 rout against the Storm, I think that the sides are very evenly matched on paper, can't really split the two. Forward packs are even, outside backs are even the half battle is going to be great. Ezra, Mam and Reynolds more than able to hold their own against Cleary and Luai, and I just think that this game is going to become a coin toss, so getting the +4 is a great edge. And people have been happy to knock the Broncos, saying they haven't got that grand final experience and they're young. But let's not forget, a lot of this team have won Origins, have played Origins, and have played in World Cup finals as well. And I just think that experience of Reynolds and Capewell and even Walters in big games as a player, I think they're going to hold the club in good stead this week. And I do think they can give it a red-hot crack. And if they do fall short, I expect it to be tight. So I'm happy to take the +4, and good luck and gamble responsibly.
Great call there. I mean, I'm tipping Broncos, so I can't disagree with that one at all. I love the breakdown there of the sides and just how even it is across the park. And I feel like when we went through them, then we came to that exact same conclusion. It is so tight in this contest, which is why it's going to be hard to pick a Clive Churchill medal winner. We're going to try one of rugby league's most prestigious medals for viewers that aren't aware. It's the grand final man of the match, essentially. When we talk Penrith Panthers, there are 2 winners in their side, currently being Dylan Edwards and Nathan Cleary in the past. Now, can I get from you your outright pick, a pick from both clubs, or maybe even a smoky option that you like in this one?
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go in depth and I'll look at the halfbacks because that was going to be my 4th key to victory. And it starts with the kicking game. As we know, a bad set can be turned into a good one on the back of a good kick. A good set can become poor if you don't execute the kick. Sunday night, as you said, Clarkey, you gave the edge to Reynolds. I think no one would disagree. These are the best 2 kickers in the world in rugby league. And I'm talking about in play, but in terms of goal kicking, probably right up there as well. And the Reynolds story is sensational. How Souths have missed him since they let him go. How Brisbane has thrived. He is 33 years old, but he's looked as good as ever. He's in incredible command of this Brisbane attack. He's like having a coach out on the field. Got tricks up his sleeve too. When we get to try scorers, we could absolutely see an outside back on the right flank of Brisbane scoring via Reynolds' boot. But then you got Nathan Cleary. And I feel like any compliment or any attribute that I could highlight for Reynolds, Nathan has it, if not more. And he is younger. He's at the peak of his powers. He's been the best player in the competition, I would say, since 2020. And I was saying it in 2020, which was early. People weren't onto it. And people, everyone else would have told you in 2020, Teddy was the best. But I just talk about the way that Nathan can influence a game. I think he can more so than anybody else. I know people try and poke holes. I think it's a tall poppy syndrome. I don't know. And people will say he doesn't always stand up in the big games. Look, Cleary is 25 years old and he's been in a lot of big games already. Sure, he hasn't won them all, but he's won Origins, won the World Cup final last year. He's won back-to-back comps. He's in his 4th grand final. He is the favourite for the Clive Churchill with good reason. Just went to back it on Dabble. I don't know if people heard me say I would save my halves chat for my Clive Churchill medal because Cleary's price has dropped 25 cents on Dabble since I said that, but I would still back him. I know it's chalky, but $3.50 is the best price I can see kind of across the marketplace. I actually would still take that for Nathan, which gives away my pick. It's fair to say. I don't give every edge to Penrith. I don't think it's a sure thing at all, but the edges add up for me that Penrith does come home with the goods on Sunday night and win their 3rd straight competition.
I'm starting to see who you're going to tip in this one as we get towards the end. So I'll start there because everyone knows by now I'm tipping Broncos. So if Panthers win, I agree with you. My Clive Churchill medal pick would be Nathan Cleary. And I do hate to offer such a obvious pick, I suppose is the word for it. But I truly believe in everything you said. Whether it's a close contest or even if it is strangely a blowout, Nathan Cleary looms as a central reason for that if the Panthers get home. So I would offer him as my other Clive Churchill medal if I'm wrong in my prediction. As far as what I am predicting, my official prediction is Payne Haas. Now, a prop has only won this award 3 times in history. In 2008 was the last time. That was Brent Kite. Prior to that, it was Willie Mason, and that was in 2004. Now, with respect to both of those players who were internationals and absolute studs, despite being young and at the stage of his career that he is, I think Payne Haas is already better than they both were. And so I just feel that Payne Haas is not only my official pick, but also there's some value in that right there. I expect it to be tight. I expect it to be a contest where, yes, the Broncos need to attack to win, but they're not going to get those attacking opportunities unless the middle is won. And when I look at the Broncos forward pack, it's easy to single out Payne Haas as their best player. I believe he will stand up here in a really big way. Win or lose, I'd predict Payne Haas is 200 plus meters at the end of this, and I don't think that's too bold. I don't think too many people would push back on that. Do you have a Clive Churchill medalist in mind if the Broncos were to get home?
It easily can be Reynolds, can be Walsh. I really like your Haas pick, though, because I think his numbers are just insane. His work rate's insane. You mentioned, couple of props in the last 20 years that have won it, but I know Warrior Hargraves was basically told that he'd won it in miscommunications. He was kind of best on ground for the Roosters. Of course, that year they gave it to Whiten on the losing side. And I was at the 2016 grand final where Fafita was the man of the match, but he'd been in some controversy, so they gave it to Luke Lewis. So I feel like multiple times props could have won it. And certainly the way that you see Brisbane beating Penrith is on the back of the men in the middle for Brisbane. You imagine that Haas would have to play a whale of a game in that circumstance. So I like that pick as well. I haven't looked, but someone can let us know in the comments kind of the best price about Payne Haas.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I expect, like, people will say, like, a Reece Walsh, because, as we're saying, the Broncos would need to attack to win. But I don't think the attack can come quite from one player like it did in the prelim with the Warriors. I think Reynolds, the whole spine is going to have to step up, and that could hurt Walsh's chances there. Whereas someone like Payne Haas just needs to play his natural game in the middle and dominate like he does so well. Do you want to go as far as a Smokey? Do you have anyone in mind at larger odds that you might like?
Look, Luke tipped today, and I didn't think it was crazy at like 45-1 Brian To'o. I feel like he's had some massive games and big moments, but it's so hard for them to ever give it to a winger. But if a winger ever was going to win it, I do feel like narrative and sentiment comes into these decisions. And a guy like To'o has the ability to potentially score multiple tries, to rack up, to lead the game in meters. The thing is, he's got so many runs on the board in big games as well leading into it that he could justify a vote. So I guess that would be like my long shot. I'd piggyback Luke's tip that he shared in the group today.
I can see him as high as $36. And Wigan never has one, but you have to think if he plays like he did against the Storm, which was a hat trick, 250 plus meters, something like, what more would he have to do to win at that point? That would have to be, if he can replicate that performance, Clive Churchill medal worthy. I did have Patrick Carrigan down as my Smokey for essentially all the same reasons when I offered him as the Wally Lewis medalist in the Origin series. But I'm looking now, he's only $2 more than Payne Haas, so it's probably not fair I offer that as a Smokey. And I can't really single out too many other people. Like, I think, like, even if Herbie Farnworth scored a double, he's 56. I probably still couldn't see him getting the award over the men that set up those tries, which would likely be around the spine there. So my official pick is Payne Haas. Your official pick is Nathan Cleary. I mentioned try scorers there. Let's look at that.
I'm going to interrupt you again. I thought this would be another time to feed in another best bet from a friendly face. The Undertaker has one for us.
Hey guys, Matty here, and my favourite angle of attack for the grand final is a same game multi paying $2.05 on double, and that is Penrith to score over 19.5 points and Brisbane to score under 24.5 points. Since round 12, Penrith have scored 20 plus in every game that they fielded a full team in, and they've kept every single team under 24.5 points all season long. That again wasn't in one of those resting rounds as well. So South scoring 20 of them was the most they've conceded all season. So I really fancy that they're going to be all out in defence again in the grand final. And I mean, they can score on anybody. You've got to be concerned if you're Brisbane how easily the Warriors scored a few tries on their edges. So that's a concern for Brisbane, and Penrith are going to exploit it better than anyone. Have a good fun grand final, guys. Best of luck.
That's a really interesting stat breakdown. And you know what? If that was any other team that had put those stats together since round 12, they would be getting such high praise from everyone, and rightfully so. But because it's the Panthers and we've just come to expect it, it's just like, it's the Panthers. That's what they do. But that is a seriously impressive stat right there. Really.
And so far, the Padonis, he likes Brisbane, but +4, they wouldn't have to win the game. Matty likes Penrith. The way he's gone about that bet, in theory, they could also lose the game. Penrith could have 20 points. Brisbane could have 24, and Matty's bet would cash. You kind of figure for Penrith to win, they're definitely going to keep Brisbane under 24.5. And they'd have to get to 20 themselves, which is no certainty, but that's why Matty's odds are better than double up price. So some ways the Undertaker and the Padonis leaning in different directions. My best bet is still to come as well.
Yes, we'll get to your best bet after our anytime try scorers chat. Let's go there. Let's have a look at both sides. Do you have anyone that's jumping out at you immediately that you really like as a favourite to cross anytime from either side?
You know what? I'm going to pretty much give you the floor in this segment because I know who you like. And I mean, someone that jumped out at me is Tony Staggs, $3.90 on 365, a very solid price on his own. And I talked about an early kick from Reynolds. It could be Staggs and Cobbo fighting for who gets to it first. But you're going to share a special tip through Top Sport with Clarkey's take on Toppy, which is probably available now. People can find. It's only going to be available for the next 45 minutes or so, I think until about 8 p.m. Eastern time. on the Penrith side of things, and I am picking Penrith, I'm going Crichton. So I'm thinking along the same lines as you. And I know he can score in so many different ways, but he can also outleap everyone and score from a bomb. I've seen his price as high as $2.75. But listen up to why Clarkey likes these guys, and he's got an even better way to attack this.
Yes, and if you don't mind, could I please ask you type this one up as well whilst I break it down for everyone? So when Winnie came to me earlier today and said, who do you like in terms of anytime try scorers? I looked at the Broncos right away as they were my tip, and the logical choice coming off a double seemed to be Herbie Farnworth. I looked at Katoni Staggs stats, and I couldn't believe he had 71 meters with 9 tackles for 5 missed. The game just went past him, and once Broncos blew out to a lead, he wasn't required at that point. This is a game where it can't go past him. And Katoni Staggs has had some incredible highlights. He's ran some strong lines this year. He's scored from grubbers. He's broken tackles on his own and scored. What I'm offering here is he's scored in a wide range of different ways. And I don't think he's going to let this grand final get past him. He's got origin experience. He's got experience for Tonga. I think he is too quality to have 2 poor games in a row. I can see him returning absolutely with a vengeance in this one. So he is my Broncos anytime try scorer. When I look across at the Panthers, it's easy to say someone like Brian To'o, and I don't think that's a bad bet at all if you're trying to build a multi. But if you are looking for a little bit more value, Stephen Crichton, baby. 2020 grand final, try. 2021, try. 2022, try. He will be looking for 4 consecutive tries in 4 grand finals with a 100% strike rate. Now, you don't have to wonder what's his mentality like in grand finals. We know he's a big game player. They might not win 2020 against the Rabbitohs without him. But where does this go one step deeper for Stephen Crichton? It is likely his last ever game in a Penrith Panthers jersey, as he is signed long-term with the Bulldogs from next year. 100% strike rate in grand finals to this point. Last game in a Panthers jersey. Another quality player that's played internationally for Samoa and on the origin stage. I think he scores for my Panthers. Now, you want to combine both of those together. If you're not quite sure which one you might like, maybe you're on the Broncos, maybe you're on the Panthers. What about this? My take on Toppy this week, Staggs or Crichton to score. Either to score at $2 on TopSport with a maximum stake of $200. Our promo code, if you don't have a Toppy account, is TP Live. Winnie, I just think that's absolutely great value. And Crichton's as low as $2.30 on his own in some places.
That's right. So to lose that, they'd have to both come up empty. You've made a great case why they're both a big shot. I love that as well. I definitely would play that. You did take on Toppy, I think, for at least half the season. Your record was actually dead even. If you were staking every single week, you ended up square, which is good work for try scorer tipping. It's not easy to do. And being even punting over a decent sample size is better than majority of punters as well. And we thought we'll bring it back for the grand final. Now, unlike a mixed matchup, this may not be available up until kickoff. This is a price that Toppy's willing to allow the live followers of this show on for. So as I said, you're closer to half an hour window. If you like the sound of that, you can jump on that bet. Now, I'm not sure if you got any smoky try scorer tips, Clarkey, but I know a man who does, so I'll throw to him next.
Hey everyone, it's Nicole from Wiki. I'm super pumped for Grand Final week. Obviously, there's the AFL Grand Final and 3 different Rugby League Grand Finals on the Sunday. What you see here, guys, just Google Wiki Linktree. You can check out our odds comparison tool, our punters preview tips with all my tips for the day, and our Discord. It's all free to check out. Just Google Wiki Linktree. Look, guys. Carrigan, 81s on double, first and last try scorer. I love the price there. Haas, 67 or 71s on Top Sport and Sportsbet, first and last as well. Spencer Leniu scored the first try in the second half, 1 in every 20 games he's played, and you're getting 41s on Neds and Sportsbet, which I absolutely love. Bit of fun here with Clive Churchill. $26 you're getting for Liam Martin, which I think is a ridiculous price. And 17s for Yo and Carrigan, a bit more realistic, and I really like them too as well for Clive Churchill. As I always say, guys, gamble responsibly. Enjoy the weekend of footy. At tips, everything will be free, live and ready to go by tomorrow. Just Google Wiki Linktree. Enjoy the games. Gamble responsibly.
Cool word there from Nicole. I always love the odds comparison tool. It's an absolute beauty for any punter there. Nicole, great guy. But he didn't mention our smoky try scorer, which I'm actually going to go Thomas Flegler. Before I get to that, though, I did see a question roll in from Facebook from Siebes, and he said, which centre is opposite Tungo? I don't think his shoulder is quite right. And I'm not sure. The Panthers kind of have that luxury, right, where Crichton can play left or right. So I think that just adds to the $2 value of that bet, where you could be getting
If
stacks.
it's the same as last week, Tungo was right center, so it would be Farnworth who he's got to deal with. Another player who's got a slight injury cloud. I would predict they'll go the same as they did against the Melbourne Storm.
I think so. There is a small chance that they do swap, and then that's even better, I suppose, if you're on Stags there. My smoky try scorer wasn't who Nicole mentioned. He went the way of Carrigan and Haas as some options. I'm looking at Thomas Flegler, more of the firebrand prop, who is a little bit more unsuspecting, probably won't garner as much attention and defense as the other two might. It's his final game as a Bronco. And I just think if you're the Broncos, particularly on that left side, if you're starting to load up out wide with Ezra Mam and Reece Walsh, that could really start to attract in the defenders who are starting to spread immediately. And if that does happen, maybe Billy Walters could get the arm free and Flegler could crash over. Maybe it could be a short ball, inside ball. I'm not sure, but the option is there. And for Panthers, I went Nathan Cleary. I'm not sure if he fits into the smoky category. He wouldn't be a favorite to score anytime, but I think he could score through a show and go. The same way where the Broncos are a little bit scrambling. They've got numbers out wide. Cleary shows it, goes himself, and he has scored in his last 4 NRL games. So there are my 2 options there for smokies. Do you like either or have a word on any smoky try scorers you like?
I'll defer to yourself and Nicole's tips. I mean, going back to Cleary, that's the difference where I think, both sides are going to look to their 7 to create that match-winning play. And I feel like Cleary's just got that little bit more of that running threat than Reynolds. He could be the one. But whether it's himself or laying it on for somebody else, I might share my best bet, hey?
Yes.
I think we've kept people waiting long enough. So talked about, the advantages for these sides. And I think Penrith is even better defensively than Brisbane and have done it for a longer period of time. So that's so key. I think the halfback, as I said, I've picked Cleary, Clive Churchill. I think that's key, and that ties into the kicking game. And I even went fullback. It could be even where many others would probably think that Walsh is the advantage, and I don't necessarily see that. Maybe slight edge to Penrith. And then that other big edge experience that I talked about at the beginning, which I think also ties into how they start the game. So my best bet is going to be a 2-leg same-game multi. You can play on Sportsbet. It is Penrith plus half a point first half and Brisbane plus 23.5. Pick your own line at $1.80. So I like Penrith first half rather than full game because I really think that the ability to remain calm in the clutch moments is going to be magnified early with all of that experience that Penrith brings into this match. And I look back at those other grand finals like 2020 that I referred to. Storm was up 24-0. 2022, the less experienced Parramatta Eels were down 18-0 at halftime. And in both cases, the underdog actually won the second half. Penrith roared home in 2020. People forget Para won the second half last year as much as that it felt like they just got destroyed. So I feel more comfortable taking Penrith first half by getting plus half a point. I not only, as opposed to just betting Penrith to win the first half, now I win if it's level. And in a game that could be really low scoring, that's a big difference and a big edge. It obviously could be anything in my mind from kind of 6-all to, let's say, it could be 12-all. And look, we're sunk if Brisbane are in front, but I believe that monumental experience edge comes into play there. However, Brisbane's just too good to be blown away. So I'm adding on the extra risk that it could be a blowout and we could lose if Penrith wins by 24 or more. But I feel like you get the fight back from Brisbane. You too much talent. It's not going to be like what we've seen the last couple of weeks, Penrith against New Zealand with no Johnson at home, or Melbourne who with a rest advantage. This is different. This is Brisbane at the peak of their powers as well. So that's why I liked. That's why I wanted to play my best bet that way.
I feel like the most dangerous of those 2 legs would definitely be the plus 0.5 at halftime. Broncos one, they'd be bitterly disappointed to be blown out by that margin, right? But the reason why I think you've played that Panthers leg very well is when we talk about grand final jitters, who's most likely to have them out of these 2 sides? You have to say the Broncos just because they're not there for the 4th time in a row. For Panthers, it's just another finals game at this point, right? So I think that's a really, really good best bet. And we'll be looking for 6 in a row in this final series, right? And if you get, is that 100% best bet record for the finals?
If that one gets up, it will be. So hopefully go out with a bang. I mean, you mentioned it, 9 straight winning seasons, but I'm not bragging about how I've done this year. We're only a few dollars in profit on best bets and mixed matchups combined. Bit more if you count the same gamers as well. I'm proud because anyone to tip for a full season, and even if you just break even, that is a great achievement. It's not easy to do. By my standards, it's been a poor year. However, at least we're finishing it the right way. I feel like since we've got into the finals and there's less unpredictability about players getting rested and motivation, we've seen it really well.
Yeah, hopefully it wasn't that pesky new co-host you brought in this year as a bad luck charm, mate. Fingers crossed that's not the case. And there's no second-year syndrome from myself. But that is all we have time for on our show tonight. We want to say thank you very much to all of our live viewers that were here with us tonight and throughout this entire season of previews. This is our last preview for the NRL for the year, so we really do appreciate that from both of us. We want to say enjoy your grand final weekend. Best of luck with all your bets, and we'll be back on Monday afternoon to recap all of our best bets and break down this monumental game of footy. So from myself, thank you very much, and over to you, Winnie, to have the last say.
Thanks to you as well, Clarkey. Guys, submit that guess. Remember, first try, Clive Churchill, and winning margin in the comments, not the live chat, but in the comments of anywhere you find this video, or you might be listening to me on a podcast right now. Go and find the video, submit your guess, because then it gives you something you can cheer for while you're watching the game as well. And someone will win a jersey. I'm actually going to give just about the last word to Matty Simmons. I shouted him out earlier. He's been crushing it all season with AFL bets. There's an AFL grand final 24 hours before this one. So if you want to listen to that, I'll play it now. Otherwise, yeah, enjoy the game, guys, and we'll catch you on Monday.
Hi guys, Simo from the TryPod here. Huge AFL Grand Final this Saturday between Brisbane and Collingwood. Going to be perfect conditions, 28 degrees and sunny at the MCG. Collingwood, they've lost their last 5 to Brisbane, including 2 encounters this season. Brisbane, they've only won 1 game at the MCG since 2014. As for Norm Smith medal winners, I do like Josh Dunkley at $14 on TAB. Now, he's a great two-way player. He could be good for a goal on 27 or 28. But he most importantly has that matchup on Jordan De Goey, who was on fire last week. Also like Joe Danaher in the perfect conditions. Also Darcy Moore, he's also at $34. Danaher's at 26s, both on Sportsbet. Brisbane, I tipped at $7.50 during the season, so I'm going to be riding that one home. And yeah, guys, enjoy the grand final. Stay up to date with the posts. If you want to turn on the notifications, go ahead.
Lego!